If you're working illegally today, right, then how are you going to not work illegally in the future?
Because the people working illegally now didn't have to prove their identification.
Of course you do.
Using biometric
but they're not.
data.
But they're not proving this at all because they're just working illegally. They're not.
So.
Keir Starmer looked you in the eye and said ID cards would be mandatory. He lied. But in this video, when Labour Minister Peter Kyle is confronted with that lie, he doesn't apologise, he smirks, he laughs, he treats it like a joke. Watch closely how he behaves while Richard Holden is giving him the cold hard facts. It is pure arrogance. Now let's watch.
Digital ID, are you disappointed with this U-turn?
I think on digital ID it's been quite overblown because we still have the policy of a digital ID must be presented to prove your eligibility to work in the UK. We're just making clear that other forms of digital ID will also be accepted at that point. There will still be a digital ID. The digital ID card system is opposed outright by the Conservative Party, but the whole point of a digital ID is bringing ID into the 21st century because most people, particularly young people, getting a bank account, renting a property, all these things take months to give IDs, which actually most young people don't have in this day and age. So bringing this up to date and then creating a state, a government that can actually bend services around the needs of people so that people can prove their identity online when they're accessing online services. We can start to do things like driving fraud out of welfare and HMRC. I mean, the Conservatives had 13-14 billion pounds worth of COVID fraud because people didn't prove their ID.
Okay.
So the idea that the government would absent itself from having an ID card system in the modern age, well, they're fine to pour tens of billions of pounds down the drain just because there is no way of proving your identity quickly. If we have another pandemic or crisis and we need to do that kind of thing again, we'll be equipped to do so.
I'm going to bring Richard back in on this, but I just want to let's listen to Keir Starmer when he made the announcement back in September about ID cards.
I am announcing this government will make a new free-of-charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament. Let me spell that out. You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID. It's as simple as that.
So that is a significant change. You will not be able to work in the UK if you do not have digital ID. Now you will.
No, that still stands because what we're doing is making quite clear that there are other forms of digital ID, such as a passport, as long as it has the chip.
That's not digital.
It is because it has the chip in it. It's a digital chip. So you can use that to prove your ID. So there'll still be a form. Now, look,
but I can't get my passport online. I have to present it physically.
You can get your passport online and you can have it renewed online as you can your driving licence. But the difference between the driving licence and the passport is the passport has a chip in it that proves your identity and proves biometrically that you are the person that's there. So there is a digital element there to it, and that will remain.
Okay.
But we also promised, and he promised at that point, that there would be a consultation, a public consultation, before we roll this out. That consultation is about to start. It hasn't started yet. But we are making clear that when people were raising concerns that some people might be able to get the digital ID card when it's announced, that there will be other forms of digital ID that a lot of people already have.
OK, so, Rick, there's been no U-turn.
I don't quite understand exactly what the government's position is now. I mean, the truth is that obviously we're just against the mandation of people having to have some form of compulsory identity document for this sort of thing. I think we've been very clear, though, and I think it was the policy and in fact it certainly was the policy under the last government that you also had to have ID if you wanted to work in the UK. I don't understand, and I think this is where the confusion's come from, how a digital ID, if people are working illegally, why would a digital ID stop them from working illegally if they're already working illegally? The government's never really answered that question. I think it was almost a solution in search of a problem for some of this stuff, because it's not going to make any difference. If you're working illegally in the UK now, you'd be working illegally without a digital ID in the future, because you've got to have ID to work in the UK today. So it's a very strange position that the government's
Peter,
taking.
what do you say to that?
So over time, everybody who's starting a new job will have to prove digitally, which is extremely. So you don't even want to start it now, so it won't drive it out over time.
You have to be able to prove legally your identity
you don't want
today.
It to exist. So you want to continue.
Peter, you have to legally prove your identity today in order to work.
Yes, but not digitally.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter, does it?
Yes, it does matter.
Why?
Because biometrics, Richard, get with it. Get with the 21st century. Biometrics
If you're working illegally today, right, then how are you going to not work illegally in the future?
Because the people working illegally now didn't have to prove their identification.
Of course you do.
Using biometric
but they're not.
data.
But they're not proving this at all because they're just working illegally. They're not.
So he wants it to carry on as it is now. We want to update it.
I want to bring in Robert from Salisbury.
People are working illegally. They're working illegally.
Rick, Robert from Salisbury's got in touch. He says, I do not understand why there should be such opposition to what appears to be such a sensible precaution and deterrent to the promotion of illegal immigration. So your answer to that is that people just are working illegally and never get asked anyway.
Well, if you're working illegally in the UK with a rogue employer, then they're not going to ask you for any form of ID, digital or otherwise. It's a spurious argument put forward by the government for a £1.2 billion scheme. It now looks like they're U-turning.
So what Richard wants to do is carry on with the paper-based system we have at the moment, where it's very difficult for HMRC and enforcement agencies to identify employers who have a certain number of employees by likelihood, by their turnover, but aren't actually declaring how many people are working for them or haven't proven and submitted all of the forms. When you move to a digital system, of course, you can do that with real accuracy, speed, efficiency, and you can do it on a scale that you wouldn't have had before. Stick with the old system, paper-based, or you go to a biometric digital system. Now, this is just a start. Actually, an ID card system is about young people being able to prove their identity and set bank accounts up, to rent properties, to start work really quickly. Saves them time, energy, all this sort of thing that's frustrating for living in an analogue world. He wants to stay in the analogue world. I want to drag us into the 21st century.
Let's have a look. I want to just go back to the politics of this, if you like. Have a look at this from The Guardian headline. Reverse Midas touch. Starmer plan prompts collapse in support for digital IDs. And this is the point here, that digital ID cards were really popular, 35% in the early summer. And then as soon as Keir Starmer announced it, it plummeted to minus 14%. Are you worried that he's got what they call a reverse Midas touch?
I'm not worried that he has that. What I am concerned about is we get better explaining our policies. We get better showing the relevance of it. I mean, what I've just done is explain the relevance of this policy to young people and other people throughout their life and working life and life in Britain, how it can make a more efficient government, a more effective government.
So why isn't that happening? Why isn't that explanation happening?
That's what we're getting to. And so the only thing that I would say that's changed is we're being more focused and we're explaining it better as we go forward. Now, it's better than just having just digging in, like on the Rwanda programme, where they've spent £600 or £800 million and never ever went back.
To your fellow cabinet
We are
ministers?
learning what people are saying. We are listening, and we're being clearer about what the benefits are of these policies.
And what's your advice on how to do that better?
Well,
I mean, it's been almost 18 months, hasn't it?
Yeah, well, actually, my advice is that we do what we're doing, and that's clarifying. We're being really clear about what we're doing, and where we get things wrong, because we will get things wrong, we act swiftly. Because people care more about delivery and what they can feel in their lives than they do about the words that come out of the mouths of politicians. And let me just say that we're going to launch the consultation soon, so the public will have their say in this. You know, we want to listen to people and get it right. We understand that the use of data and the use of government data at this is a real concern for people. And we have to reassure people that by having this kind of system, their data will be more locked into them, and people, individual people, will have much more control over how their data is used.
Okay.
All these things are things that we will do as we go forward.
I've got some other U-turns I need to talk about very quickly.
Can I just say, so the very idea that HMRC today can't work out the turnover of a company and how many employees it has and how something like that be magically transformed with digital ID, it's just complete
So how do we get £15 billion worth of fraud during COVID, where all it was people giving their wrong name, their wrong address, and nobody could check?
Obviously, during COVID, things had to be done at incredible speed. But what I'd say,
every day in government is incredible speed.
Wait a second. We actually halved the amount of fraud and error in the system under the last government. No, you can laugh at it, but you look at the ONS stats. I mean, I know they ignore the numbers. I mean, they did. They've ignored the people on when it comes to things like obviously business rates and stuff as well, which is another U-turn.
Right, well, I want to talk
HS2.
Richard, is exactly what I want to talk about. Henry,
money
let's just talk. We have the business secretary here. Let's talk about business rates. Yes. This was another U-turn about pub business rates.
You can laugh at it. Richard Holden said what we were all thinking. Why was Peter Kyle smiling? They marched their MPs out to defend a policy, then scrapped it a week later because the polls crashed. That is incompetence. But to sit there and smirk when you are called out on it, that is arrogance. They think they can say one thing to get elected and another thing once they're in power, and they laugh when you notice. Does that look like a government that respects you? Let me know in the comments. If you want to see more videos like this, hit the like and subscribe button, and don't forget to ring the notification bell.